And yes, we're live. Welcome everyone to yet another episode of Going Beyond Your Comfort Zone. Today, my guest is Danielle Brazant, and we're going to have a very interesting conversation. I think she's been through some very well, how shall I say, interesting, difficult, or challenging situations, which definitely expanded her comfort zone. But I will, I'll give you all the opportunity to talk about that, Danielle. Um, yeah, in this conversation, we do talk about your comfort zone. Um, what are those pivotal moments in life? How do we deal with change? How do we notice we resist change? And what are we creating for our future? So, Danielle, please, I know you're calling in from Iowa.
Yep,
Introduce yourself, and yeah,
let's
let's start.
go.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to appear on your show today. And like you said, my name is Danielle Brazant. I am a speaker, writer, and presenter based out of the Midwestern American state of Iowa. That's where I'm broadcasting to you from. And I'm excited to be here. And like you said, yeah, I had several challenges I had to overcome in my life. The first one being why I'm a speaker and why I wrote my book, my traumatic brain injury, which I suffered in a near fatal car crash in the year 2012. That year, just a series of events happened that day. And I not only suffered that car accident, before they could even put me in the ambulance and rush me to the hospital, I stopped breathing and I was within 2 minutes, a minute 37 seconds to be exact, of not being able to, they didn't have a respirator there and I wasn't breathing. So they had to breathe for me. And I was in a minute 37 seconds of going into organ failure and all those other awful things that I don't even want to think about. But I started breathing on my own. They loaded me in the ambulance and my journey began. I was still unconscious and I had suffered a traumatic brain injury. And fast forward a year and a half, my medical recovery was complete, but I struggled with the emotional and the mental recovery of and professional recovery of everything I had lost. Before my car accident, I was planning to graduate college. I was on my way to graduate college, receive my bachelor's degree in business management. I was going to become a corporate buyer. I had fully paid for scholarships and everything that would have fully paid for my bachelor's, but I had to give all that up. So I wasn't able to complete my bachelor's degree. I lost my apartment. I had to move back home with my parents. I lost everything. I lost my vehicle. So I had to literally start from scratch. And I became situationally depressed through all that, through the encouragement and the tough love, I would say, of my loved ones who really pushed me to just not feel sorry for myself. Self pity is one of the most dangerous emotions that anybody can ever experience because when you feel sorry for yourself, you make excuses for yourself and you allow yourself to not achieve as much because you give yourself excuses and you can't ever give yourself excuses in life. So, through all that, fast forward,
mhm.
I'm here. I wrote my book about my experience and I became a speaker, writer, and presenter, what I am today. And I'm truly living the life of my dreams. And you kind of direct me where you want me to take this conversation because I can talk about my book now, or I can talk about my speaking, or we can talk about, I think, the topic we touched on when we agreed to do the appearance on your show, how emotional intelligence just made me successful as a speaker and in every other area of my life. Because that is something I had to learn after my recovery, after I had thought I knew everything there was to know and I had achieved everything that I should achieve, and I was on my way. I thought I was on my way to success, but there was one missing piece that I had a mentor in my corporate career who just sat me down and said, "No, you need this."
Mhm.
So tell me where you want to take the
I
conversation.
I definitely want to talk about emotional intelligence, but before we go there, I
Mhm.
mean the the journey of your recovery. I mean, um, it must have been hard to get up in the morning or to get your day started to like a certain moment in this whole thing. You know, when you're losing everything, you know, what is your next um, your next step in life. You might not even be thinking about it every like you know you had your car crash, but then like you there's a second crash. You know, your life is crashing and
Yes.
everything tumbles down and you lose everything. So um, where did you find um, let's say your drive? Where did you
Oh,
find it back?
yeah. You are so right. Like I lost everything. And after my medical recovery, the medical recovery was probably the easiest part. As hard as that was, as difficult as that was. I had feeding tubes. I had to relearn how to walk, how to read, how to chew solid food. As difficult as all of that was, what was more painful and more heartbreaking really was the emotional and professional recovery. I had lost everything and I was looking at my life. I was about to graduate college on the top of my class and start this exciting, what I thought would be an exciting, high paying corporate career as a corporate buyer. I had lost everything and the trajectory that I thought would lead my life to success. And I had nothing. And I became situationally depressed. And at one moment, I did contemplate suicide. It was a very dark place I found myself. But luckily, through just really loved ones around me who, like I said, it was tough love. It wasn't the type of love that says, "Oh, woe is you, I'm so sorry." It wasn't the type of love that allowed you to feel sorry for yourself or make excuses for yourself. It was my father telling me I was still the same person. I still had the same ability to achieve everything I had once dreamed of. My brother just telling me he really just he is the person that saved my life. My older brother came home from work as I was about to write. He didn't know this at the time. I was about to start writing my suicide note. That evening, he came home from work and looked at me and threw the newspaper classifieds in my face and said, "You need something to do every day. I I found you a job. Here, call this number. You just need to get out of the house." Little did he know, little did he know that he was totally right because I was sitting there about to start writing my suicide note when he just it's just miraculous. There's a miraculous timing of events in life. I myself choose to believe in a higher power, but not everybody does, and that is a personal right. But even if you don't, there is a sequence, a beautiful sequence of events in life, and there's a karma that just can collide that can either make or break things. And there is a higher purpose to life that is undeniable for anybody, whether you choose to believe in a higher power or not. There's just something, a higher purpose to life that is undeniable. And the sequence of events all came together perfectly that night. My brother didn't know that I was about to start writing my suicide note. He
Hmm.
didn't know like how right he was when he said you just need to get out the house. He
Yeah.
just looked at me and thought he was giving me something to do, and he gave me another life. He saved my life because I called the number and I ended up getting the job and I was out of the house. I no longer had any time to feel sorry for myself, to contemplate everything that I had lost. And I had financial resources, money coming in once again that I hadn't had for over a year and a half. I couldn't work. I was dependent on my family. So it gave me a just something to do. I didn't even particularly like the job, but it just
What was it?
something to do, huh?
What was it?
Oh, it was a to be a shift manager at a local chain of coffee shops that had just
Okay.
opened.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
in food service. It was very. I had to wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning because it's serving coffee to people. So it's
Uh-huh.
the early morning commuters. I had to get there early to open the store and help make the pastries. So it was not even a job I particularly liked, but it got me out of the house. It gave me something to do. And once I had that lifeline, I started to think about my father's words where he told me I still had no excuse not to dream anymore, that I was still the same person, that I could still accomplish everything that I had once hoped.
Hmm.
So I had achieved that goal of getting out of the house, getting back on my feet. I got my own apartment. I was able to move out of my parents' house with the resources from my job, and I started to think about the dream. And that's when I started to just write my book and decide I was going to start my speaking career because I knew I wanted to speak. I wanted to share the story of everything that had helped happen to me and how my life was totally turned upside down and landed in a place where I had to start over, but start over beautifully. I wanted to share that story so that I could help others. So I knew that was the ultimate goal and I knew that was the ultimate dream. And once I had achieved a small goal, I got back on my own feet. Had a job, I had resources. So I started to dream, and here I am, just living the life of my dream, living the life of my dreams. Truly, like I get to travel the country. I was in 6 states. I was okay. This year, 2023, I made my first breakthrough into the European audience. I spoke about potentially speaking in the UK at a. I wasn't able to make it. It didn't work, but I spoke potentially. I'm hoping to get over to the UK for conferences, and I had my first podcast appearance. A lovely woman, the Claire Walsh coaching broadcast out of Ireland. She had me as her featured guest a couple months ago. So I'm starting to break into the European sphere, and I'm excited about that.
Great, great. So, when you look back at your car crash, was that like, and all that you've been through, was that like, was that necessary for you to be able to get into this direction, or if it hadn't happened? I mean, of course, you cannot
Mhm.
look back or look like in a glass bowl. It's not like
Mhm.
that. But I'm just more like, how do you experience it? Is it uh, yeah, was it like, did it put you in the direction that you needed to go?
Yes, beautiful. Beautiful. You hit the nail on the head. Yes. If I hadn't had gone through that, something that almost took my life, that fatal near fatal car accident, my life would not look like anything that it is today. And I truly believe that I was destined to be a speaker. I love to talk. You probably figured that out already by now. I love people. I love
Mhm.
to be able to use my words. At one point, as a little girl, I started writing poetry, and I wanted to become a writer, but I gave up that dream when I realized how hard it would be and how difficult it is to become a writer and to make a living off of that. So I abandoned that and just started to plot my corporate career because I wanted to make the most money that I could at a very young age. I'm very ambitious, very competitive. But that car accident just made everything come full circle, and it got
Mhm.
me back on track to what I was always meant to be. And I went back to just not thinking about myself as the only focus of my entire existence. I started thinking about how I could use my abilities and what I had been through to help other people. So yeah, I think this is the same thing that can prove true for everybody. That's why I love your show and what you're saying, because the message is true. It's what I speak about. Everybody has a story. Everybody has an obstacle in their life. Everyone that they have to overcome. And the
Yeah.
process of overcoming that obstacle, that hindrance, that one traumatic event, that process of overcoming that teaches you lessons, makes you stronger, And it can ultimately put you on the path of becoming who you were always meant to be. And it can make your life what it was always meant to become. That's true for everybody. And
Yeah,
I
yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, we all have our story, we all have our journey, we all have obstacles, and it really doesn't matter where
mhm,
you are born, or even when you might have privileges,
mhm,
might even be that might even be an obstacle,
yes,
to have to deal with your privileges, and
mhm,
not but what I also wanted to ask, like, I mean, you say you love to speak, but then you like now you had to go stand in front of audiences
mhm,
and do your speaking.
mhm.
Did that because I mean, for a lot of people, that's like the worst thing to do.
Yeah, no,
Did that come with, let's say, like, did you have to overcome something for that, or was it just like, were you nervous in the beginning, or was it just like really just natural?
well, I will say this year that in April of 2023, I gave my first keynote opening day keynote address and
Uh-huh.
before a large audience. It was also I also took videos so I could post it online. So like that was my biggest event yet. And before that event, anybody who would tell you that, oh no, I wasn't nervous, it's natural. Anybody who tells you that, even somebody like me, I'm probably as extroverted as a human being could be. I'm
Uh-huh.
not shy. But anybody who would tell you that before an experience like that, your first one, that they were completely comfortable or they didn't have jitters or they weren't nervous is lying. There's no way. Just as a human being, you have to. And that's healthy because nobody's perfect. So you know things could go wrong. You may not connect with the audience. So I was practical. I know I'm a human being. Any I know I didn't, thank goodness I didn't have that cockiness and the arrogance that I could think that I could just go up there and just be wonderful and everybody would love it. Like anybody who tells you that is lying. And if they believe it, if they're lying to themselves to the point where they actually believe that, that would be the worst thing ever for their career, particularly as a speaking career, because I wanted to do it again. So be able to do it again. And luckily I have
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
to be able to do it well the first time you get that opportunity, you need to kill it. You need
Mhm.
to get those testimonials. Your audience needs to be happy. So I did some practical things. I joined my local, you may have heard of this in Europe, Toastmasters International. We have European chapters. So I joined my local Toastmasters because, yeah, I'm
Okay.
a speaker, I know how to talk, but I knew there's just like everything, there's ways you need to learn how to do it formally and
Hmm.
ways that will make you more effective. So I practiced my speech before my Toastmasters group before
Okay.
I did it live.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I knew I needed that practice. I needed that feedback that could help me. So yeah, everybody is always a work in progress. So anything, even if you're good at it, even if you're a natural at something, you still need to refine it and polish it before you want to do it as a career and make a living from it.
Yeah, it's funny, or funny. It's like I went to a
A
speakers
Toastmaster?
academy or course
Yeah.
once, and we just had to speak in front of like our like the course, and nothing prepared, but just speak naturally. And then uh, there was about like 20 people, and there was like you could see people were really struggling, and then there were like people that were like really good, and and I was like,
You're a
I
good
wouldn't
speaker.
say I was the best, but I was like
No,
in the
you're a good speaker. You're a good speaker.
yeah. But then people came up to, like, so we were talking with a little group, and then people were coming up to like, let's say, the top three, and they're like, "Why are you in this course?" And it's like, because you so natural, you got it figured out, and it's not a problem, and you speak freely. And I was like, yeah, it might look like that, but it's like inside, it's like there's just like I don't know. It's a pinball machine. It's like it's going everywhere. And
Exactly.
everything is bouncing and like crazy. And you're like so self-aware or whatever, or nervous, and and it was really like, um yeah. And that's like, and I've done like other, like, not events like you have, but I've spoken at funerals
Mhm.
and things like that. But that a friend of mine, she has a funeral service, and I helped her out. So it's not like I was
Yeah.
doing the eulogy for loved ones, but more as an organizer. But
Mhm.
yeah, people are like, well, how can you do these kind of things? But even there, you stand there, and there's always a little bit of like, how it will be received, and
Yes.
what people will think, and there's always like a little bit of like, uh, nervousness
Jitters.
or something.
Jitters.
Yeah,
Jitters.
jitter, whatever. Yeah,
And that's healthy because that's a human being recognizing that they're not perfect. Only the biggest narcissist in the world would not have those jitters before doing something so big in front of other people.
yeah,
You need to have those jitters because that is you recognizing to yourself that you are a human being, that you're not perfect, that anything could happen, that it's beyond your control, and you need to just hone your skills with anything. No matter how good you are, you can always be better, right? Because nobody's perfect. Perfection doesn't exist for a human being. So you can, as good as you are, there's always room for improvement.
yes, yes, absolutely. How was it? That's a more of a personal.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
Nothing.
no, no, maybe not so much a personal question for you, but
Yeah.
more a personal thing for me, like dealing with feedback. How was that for you? Like when you stand there and people tell you, you did this and you did that, and you were like,
Yeah, your hair was in your face. Like
yeah,
there
or
was
you just keep
something, yeah,
like
it's,
fluffing
it's like
your
there
face.
was, there was something in your teeth, right? But imagine if nobody told you that.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
this is a nice segue into emotional intelligence because this is where you need to learn that emotional intelligence because that's the biggest thing. And it was hard for me. I think it's hard for any human being. We don't
Mhm.
like hearing those negative things about yourself, but somebody has got to tell you the things you're doing wrong. You don't like to hear it, it hurts. I take everything personal. I want to be the best that I can, but perfection doesn't exist. So I'm not perfect. So I have to hear the things that I'm doing that don't work as well, that aren't good. So I had to get that feedback. You're right, and I got it. My Toastmasters, my mentor at my first mentor, she's still kind of we still work together today. But when I had a mentor, when you join Toastmasters, you get a mentor. And my first
Uh-huh.
mentor was telling me things. I'm like, oh, really? I did that? I didn't even realize. I didn't even realize I did those things. But you need to hear it, and it hurts. But emotional intelligence, listening to hear the other person, not listening to respond, being
Yeah,
able to accept feedback and nod your head and say, okay, thank you, and just not going on immediately. Because prior to me learning emotional intelligence, in the last 5 years, this is something that I really had to learn and learn it well from a corporate mentor that I had in my job, who just took me aside and told me what I needed to learn.
hmm,
Prior to that, I was very combative because I took every feedback, every negative feedback I received I took it personal. It was like a criticism of my entire being, and I didn't like to hear it. And I constantly I would hear the feedback, and then I would make excuses for why I did those things. But when you do that, when you're listening to respond and you're immediately going on the attack with every single criticism or critique you get, right? That's not good because you're not learning and you're not taking the feedback in and making the changes that you need to change so that you don't do those things that elicited that criticism.
yeah.
So that was a big step in learning my emotional intelligence when just being able to, emotional intelligence is just being able to step back and accept feedback and accept criticism. But yeah, let's be honest, it always hurts. It's everybody, particularly now in this generation, you can't even look at a person wrong without getting in trouble. Like, everybody is so sensitive everywhere across the world. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We need to be cognizant of how we're treating people and the words that we say and how we just say things to people. So you need to be able to give feedback in an appropriate manner, and you need to accept feedback in an appropriate manner. And that's all part of emotional intelligence. And I had to learn that, being
Yeah.
able to accept criticism.
It's funny. Like my dad, he always watches the show, and one time he's like, can I give you some feedback?" And I was like, "Yeah, you can." He's like,
No, I don't want to hear my mother.
"Maybe you should look at the camera a bit more." And I was like, I do, so did not want to hear that from you, but he was right, you know. So, but it's like, it's like when people tell you, like the feedback, like what people tell you and what you make it mean, or the story you create around it, it was like, what am I doing with this? I'm victimizing myself, or I'm making myself wrong, or I'm saying I'm not good enough, instead of just like, it just tells you to look at the camera a bit more and make it better, so look at the camera a bit more. And that's what I try to do nowadays, and
Yeah, you are
it's an
doing that.
improvement.
Yeah, you are doing that. Good job.
But so yeah, about the emotional intelligence, and the thing that you said about um,
Being able to
like,
accept criticism and feedback.
yeah, but also people being so sensitive these
Oh
days,
yeah. Mhm. Oh yeah.
and the cancel culture.
Yeah.
Um, what you seeing that in an emotional intelligence, or seeing that through an emotional
Mhm.
intelligence glasses, or whatever filter you want to call it, what do you think about the canceling culture?
Well, see, I touched on it. I was on a podcast, the Healing Place podcast, a few months ago, and we touched on this topic where I used to be one of those people, particularly before I learned emotional intelligence, that was just all like, I'm not woke. I'm not. I have thick skin. My parents raised me with, I had old fashioned parents with tough
Mhm,
love. And you need to hear the things about yourself that aren't necessarily positive, because that will make you better, and tough love, right? So I used to be one of those people that said, oh, people are just too sensitive now. They need to learn to accept criticism. But then I just stopped. I learned emotional intelligence. And a part of emotional intelligence is being able to look at things from other people's perspective. And I thought about the mental health crisis that is worldwide.
mhm,
Around the world, we have a crisis in mental health. Suicide levels in every country are higher than they never have before. Addictions are higher in every country, higher than they ever have been before. And when you look at that and you think about the cancel culture and people being woke and people being too sensitive, you take a step back and realize, well, okay, we've gone overboard. I think we're getting better now. We're getting a little bit better now. In the year 2023 going into 2024, we're a little bit better than we were, let's say, a couple years ago with this. But
mhm,
when you even think about it, where you can't say anything, it's just, what it is maybe perhaps a overreaction to that mental health crisis, where you never know what somebody else is going through. You
mhm,
never know. Like, you don't want to be inadvertently. And before I learned emotional intelligence, I could have been this person. And you don't want to be that person that inadvertently just says something that could push somebody over the edge. Two examples I want to give, like, two friends. This ended up in court, where a friend just was going through a really tough time. And another friend, it was a friend, texts them back just offhandedly, like as a joke. Oh, you should just kill yourself. Just, they said that to be funny. And you know what? The person, they didn't even know that they had this demon inside them. They didn't even know that this person was struggling with suicide. That friend saw that text and they did it. They killed themselves. Another example, a mayor, just a well-known public figure. He had another life. Like, his wife knew about it. It should have stayed between them. She didn't mind, so it's their own personal thing between them and should have stayed there. But publication, social media website, just put it on, broadcasted it to the world in this little small conservative town that he lived in. He was the mayor of this small conservative town. But you see, he he liked to, as part of his wife knew about it. She didn't mind, so it was their business. But he liked to cross dress, so he did drag shows on the
Yeah,
side, just
yeah,
as a hobby. He did drag shows. That's his own personal business. But he was the mayor of this conservative town, and a publication got a hold of it, and they broadcasted it all over social media, and it hit the media. He went home the day that happened, and he hung himself. That's why you have to be sensitive. That's why we are woke. It is just a direct byproduct of the mental health crisis that is all over the world. You never want to be that person that will trigger somebody else's trauma. That's why emotional intelligence is so important. And that's why perhaps we are a little bit too sensitive. We're getting better, but perhaps we've gone overboard with the sensitivity and the cancel culture. But we're just hyper aware now of the fact that we don't want to offend anybody. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings because you never know what somebody else is going through. I was once suicidal. I know how easy it is to just push somebody over that edge, and you don't want to do it. That's why we have to be so hyper aware of the things that we say and the stuff that we do and the effect that it has on other people. That's all part of emotional intelligence.
yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree less with you. I mean, it's not. Oh God, how wanted to say this. It's not. It doesn't. We're unique. We're diverse, and let's celebrate that. And
Mhm.
freedom of speech. We say sometimes we might say things that are not well received by other
Mhm.
people, but it's freedom of speech is one of the highest goods we have, and that comes with
Responsibility.
having, sorry.
Yeah, freedom of speech comes with responsibility, right? So we
Exactly.
have freedom of speech, but you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That
No.
is going to produce mass chaos, mass panic, potential death. So freedom of speech comes with responsibility. And yes, we are adults, so we can't be. I'm not for cancer culture. Like, if somebody says something that is offensive, and a lot of people do it now with the world leaders we've had in recent years. Just, I think a part of that has been a reaction, a boomerang, probably perhaps from society, of people just a little bit fed up with how overboard we've gone with sensitivity and wokeness and cancel culture, and we have gone overboard. Like, people should be allowed to apologize, and we shouldn't be digging up stuff somebody perhaps said 10 years ago that was offensive to a certain group of people. Let sleeping dogs lie. Just, you don't need to be digging up, because everybody has said something that is potentially offensive. We weren't as emotionally intelligent as aware of the things that we should say nowadays. So let's start from scratch. Let's look at what it is that people are currently saying and the stuff that they're currently doing. We shouldn't be digging up everything that people said in the past, because everybody has a past, and we weren't as aware as we are now. People are allowed to grow, so people
Yes,
should.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yeah, canceling someone for tweets that they tweeted, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago,
Yeah,
and where they live a completely different life
we
right
were a
now.
different society.
Yeah.
Or
So
something that they say offend. Let's say they say somebody says something offensive. People should be confronted with their words, but they should be allowed to apologize and move on. You don't necessarily have to ruin somebody's life because of something they said, like when they were drunk or mad, or we're all human, like we said before, right? So that means that we're not perfect. So people should be allowed to apologize and move on and not have their whole livelihood taken from them. But if somebody, just say somebody doubles down on what they said, that's offensive, well, then they should, then if you're doubling down and you're continuing to repeat something, then you should face the consequences of your belief and your actions. But people should be allowed to apologize. We need to give people the chance, like second chances, right? I'm on my second chance. I almost lost my life. I'm living my second life. And I didn't find this life, I didn't find my dream and my purpose until I got into this second life, because I was given a second chance at life. So everybody deserves a second chance. Some people don't find their purpose till their third or fourth chance.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's never too late for
Mhm.
indeed the third, fourth, fifth, 20th chance. I mean, it's like people can change.
Change, yes.
Um, so I do want to talk a little bit more about emotional intelligence with you and how you bring that to the world in your work, or how, yeah, what how do you bring that? Yeah, how do you bring that to the world?
Well, just by doing things like I'm doing with you today, just
Mhm.
sharing my story and then incorporating how my story didn't end with my car accident, because even after that, even after I had this miraculous event and I thought I was on my way, I still had things I need to learn and things to improve upon. And that was emotional intelligence, where a mentor in the last 5 years, I had a mentor just teach it to, just take me aside and just teach this to me and just tell me to my face. A lot of people were just telling me things, but they weren't clear. They didn't say right. They could never pinpoint it in a way that I could understand. So I just summed up the feedback and the criticism as, oh, okay, they're just jealous, or oh, they're just trying to tear me down, or nobody just ever sat me down and explained it the way my mentor did. He's like, look, I'm on your side. I want you to be successful. But this
Mhm.
is something that you don't have, that you need to learn. And not having this is just holding you back in life. And little did I know how right he was. Just little things just that I did, just listening to respond. I would often, because I'm ADHD, and I have just too much energy. And
Yeah.
oftentimes I would just blurt out stuff because I want to say something before I forget it. But I would do that and interrupt a person. Somebody else is already speaking. And in my haste to say something, I often interrupted people. I would just walk up to people in the middle of conversations and start talking, because what I had to say was more important than whatever it is they were talking about, and just it just was off-putting and just left a bad taste in people's mouths about me, even though I had all these other positive, amazing things about me. Just everyday Danielle did these little things that were not emotionally intelligent, that just turned off a lot of people. And just nobody explained it to me, to my mentor. And I'm like, oh wow, I didn't quite realize I was doing these things and how off-putting. And I've had stuff like that happen to me, and I would tell you it's very annoying. I could see how I'm I used to do this so much, and I'm like, wow, no wonder people don't like, because that is it makes me mad when it happens to me. And now, like, so I'm like, imagine like as much as I was doing it, like goodness, like it's amazing that I even survived. Like seriously, like I had a lot of just bad little habits that were the derivative of a lack of emotional intelligence, and I had to learn it. And I'm still not perfect. I still like to talk. I still maybe interrupt when I shouldn't eat, and I'm not realizing it. But I've gotten better, and I've learned to accept criticism, and I've learned to recognize the things that I do.
Okay.
That
Let me interrupt you.
you did too. that is something that you have to do because I
No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, it. What I so this like emotional intelligence is it's constant. It's never ending. It's a journey to growth and like the way I look at it or the way I see it, you have these, or I have these tendencies that, or this, it's the same trigger showing up all
Mhm.
the time, and um, the I can handle the smaller triggers, and then, or the periods between the triggers, they get longer, but then all of a sudden, boom, it's back, you know, and then um, I have to deal with it again, or um, and I'm wondering how do you have a certain trigger that keeps coming back, or you want to share it?
Yes, thank you for that question. And I get this from my both my parents. I get this from both my parents because they both had quick tempers. So I have a quick, ferocious temper. Like it's an inferno. So like when something happens that I don't like, or just somebody just irritates me, like I get really, really mad. And
Mhm.
a part of emotional intelligence is awareness, right? When you're in that state of fury, and you cannot say anything. You cannot allow yourself to say anything. You have to like, I'm like, Danielle, not now. You cannot respond to this. You cannot say anything right now. Just calm down. Calm down. Take a deep breath, then come back to it. Because whatever I say just in that state of rage, it's going to be wrong. It's not going to be emotional intelligence. It can potentially like do damage to myself because nowadays, right, people, you can't say the wrong thing, but like saying the wrong thing in the wrong environment can just ruin your life. So you just have to always be thinking about your words and what you say and how you respond to things.
Uh-huh.
And I have a temper, and I sometimes I'll, if I allow myself to respond to things when I'm in that state of like rage, it's never going to be good. So I have to say, okay, this happened the other day. Just Danielle, calm down. Don't say anything right now. Give yourself like take a deep breath. Give yourself as much time as you need. You have to calm it down, reel it in before you can respond to this. So yeah, definitely. We all have those triggers, and we all have to learn to overcome them in a way that is emotionally intelligent, because potentially those triggers, right, could ruin your own life. Like that other person made you mad, but how you respond to that could ruin your own life. And you don't want to do that.
Is it funny? While we're talking about this, I don't know if you heard or noticed, but there was some firework going off.
Oh, and that was making you mad. You're like, no.
There's an actual firework outside, but funny. But
Oh, nighttime? Is it nighttime in Holland right now?
well, it's 4:45, so
Okay,
it's
okay, getting
about
there.
getting dark. But there's
Yeah.
just some youngsters uh, putting out some firework. But there's just
Oh, it irritated you. Okay, that's
no, no. Yeah, I want to
yeah.
scream,
You're
go
like,
out like a
I'm doing
scream.
like you, like you stop. I'm doing my live.
Yeah.
I was talking so much, so I didn't hear anything.
Okay, no problem. Um, yeah. So one of the things I want to touch on quickly with you as well is like constant change, like in emotional intelligence, or in your career, in your speaking. Um, what how do you notice that you resist change for yourself?
A good question. That's a very good question, and I think that is a byproduct of being human. We like
Mhm.
doing the things that we know how to do.
Yeah.
And change, right? I said this once in a speech. Change is never always good and it's never always bad. It's just always. It will always happen. So we just have to learn to grow and adapt no matter what. Because some change is good, a lot of change is good. We see like how the world is changing and evolving. That's innovation. And innovation is another word for change. So a lot of change is good. But let's be honest, we were talking about cancel culture and things
But
like
I mean,
yeah, like
people were like in the beginning, people were resisting mobile phones, you
yeah.
know. Like, I
Now
don't want a mobile phone. I don't need a mobile phone. Now,
exactly.
if you look
You
anywhere,
can't
people
live
would
without
just
it. Exactly. But let's be honest, let's look at what cancel culture. I want to think
yeah.
about something else. Like the destruction of the rise in addictions and mental health crisis. Not all change is good because that's a change. The change we've had in this enormous global rise in suicide and addiction and mental health crises. That's a change, and that's not good. So not all change is good, and not all change is bad. It's just something we have to adapt to because it will always happen, whether we like it or not. It's constant. So we just have to learn to adapt, and a part of that comes back to emotional intelligence, just learning how to adapt to things and respond to things in a way that is healthy and beneficial for yourself and level-headed and productive. I think that's how we deal with change. Like you just have to respond to it in a way that is just beneficial to both yourself and the world. What do you think? Give us
Yeah, no, I
just
agree. And I mean, what I find fascinating about change is that positive change is also change we resist. You
hmm
know, we like things to change for the positive, but then
we
we
resist it.
sorry, yeah, we resist
Yeah,
it.
it's
It's
funny.
like, then we have success or we get success and then we'll sabotage the success. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
it cannot be that good, or we want a relationship and then we'll sabotage that because it's too good, or it's like it can only go wrong from here.
Mhm.
Instead of like embracing it or continuing it or adding vulnerability to it, or adding something else to it so that it continues. um, and that's yeah, that's something that I find fascinating about change.
Mhm.
How um, and also like how small things can lead to like a small obstacle is too hard to take, but the reward is massive change, for the
Okay.
good. um it's like, it's like, just let's say, like making a phone call to someone, that you're resisting, or that you haven't spoken to in years, and then like, no, let's not do that, or I'm just right, or I'll just like, whatever happened, and then you don't do it, but then the reward, the one thing that you really want, or like a working friendship or working family or whatever, you will not you're not willing to give up that tiny little thing, or you're not willing to do that thing, um, because the other one has to do it or something. um, yeah, and that's yeah, the positive change you resist, or the possibility for positive change.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is so true. It's just as human beings, we just like doing the things that are familiar. We like doing the things we always have done. But if you always do the things you've always have done, you don't you don't change, you don't adapt, you don't grow. So
No,
change is necessary just to advance. Innovation. Innovation, we all like innovation. Like that's what give us things like what we're doing, Zoom and computers and the internet. So everybody likes innovation, but innovation is just another word for change. So there's a lot of positive to change because change is a byproduct of growth. And when you grow, you change, and growth is good, and it's good for us to change. But not all change, let's be honest, not all change is positive. So, and this isn't, I start my book like this. It's just a scientific principle. With every force in the world, with every force, there's an opposite. So with
Mhm.
matter and antimatter, it's just a scientific principle. With every positive comes a negative, comes a side effect.
Yeah.
So that positive change brings with it some negative side effects, like the innovation and the fast pace of society now, how we're so go, 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 and we're so mobile and innovative and fat, like the world is exciting. What has come with that, with the constant pressure and the stresses of the 21st century, that has caused the addiction and the mental health crisis, because it's
Yeah.
for people. They just don't like just having like boom, somebody your face is always out there. You're always in public, like social media, something you do that you didn't think that anybody would find out. Boom, it's all over the world, like that in a day, like it goes all over. That's too much for some people. That's a stress. So with everything comes opposite. So not all change. I think in a better way to say it is not that all change is not positive. It's just that with every change comes a side effect. There's
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
we have to deal with as a result of that. So even though that change is positive, like the mobile phones and the computers and the internet, that's good. We like that stuff. But that has led to, the stressors of the mental health crisis that we find ourselves in
Yeah.
around the world.
And I also think that like the negative change will lead to eventually lead to the
Positive.
positive. We need to go through certain things to
Exactly.
get to a better place. Um, okay, we're kind of getting to the end, and I'm just like curious. Like you've been through such a journey, and what do you? Your journey is far from over.
Mhm.
What do you what do you want to create for let's say, well, 2024 is so close. What do you want to create for 2024? And if you
And
want to talk
beyond.
beyond, that's totally fine as well.
Perfect. So, like I said, I'm just excited with my life right now. Right now, currently, I'm in the process of just finalizing my 2024 speaking engagements. I've already just this week I've been invited to launch a collaboration with a life coach. This is interestingly enough, it's on communication and emotional intelligence. She
Uh-huh.
wants me to do a collaborate, be one of her speakers. She's a coach out of Nevada, the U.S. state of Nevada. We're
Hmm.
near Las Vegas, and
Yep.
she just invited me on Tuesday to just be one of her experts on communication and emotional intelligence. So she has people she coaches in her group. It's part of it's growing, a growing group of people she coaches, and she has experts that she directs her people to, and she just asked me to be one of the experts for 2024, and I'm excited about that collaboration. I was asked a few weeks ago. I was asked to plan and spearhead a large event. I'm thinking of another event that I'm just in the middle of trying to plan and get off the ground, and then finalizing all my speaking engagements, and then just doing things like meeting wonderful people like you, and just constantly, like, I've established myself pretty much in 2023 as a thought leader. So I'm always on podcasts, always on media shows, writing articles for the paper, just putting my stuff out there. And that reminds me that I have another article due for out of California. I am collaborating with another coach like yourself,
Oh,
who has a blog, and I'm a contributor. I'm a regular contributor to her blog, and I'm gonna about ready to write my contribution for New Year's 2024. So I have to get started on that, and just I'm excited about the collaborations I'm doing with coaches and other speakers and experts like yourself, gurus, and continuing my speaking engagements. And then I also work. I have a job, a day job in sales, a flexible
okay.
day job. So I do all of that. So I sometimes I don't have a day off in a week, but when you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. I'm not looking for days off because, why do I need a day off from my dreams? And that's what I think I'm building right now. So I'm content for the moment and just being always busy because I love what I'm doing and I love what I'm building. So eventually I'll have the time to slow down and savor a little bit of the success I'm building for myself. But right now I'm in the building process.
Great, Danielle. Where can people reach you if they want to reach out to you?
Where you want where you can go to find out anything about myself and to reach out to me, message me, just send me and to learn more about my book and myself and my speaking, my website, daniellebrazant.com. So www.daniellebrazant, my name that's underneath the screen.com. Just go to my website and find out anything you need to know. And you can also contact me from there and buy my book.
Okay, good. So go buy that book, Danielle. It was really a pleasure to have you on the show, and the conversation we had, and the journey you've been through, which it's quite remarkable. I can say, over having to yeah, overcome like such a car crash, and your life crashing.
Yes.
Afterwards. Thank you for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. I will be back here next week with another guest talking about going beyond your comfort zone. And have a wonderful Christmas, everyone. And I'll uh, see you next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.